Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Robert Allen, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Sergeant Jeanette McNeely. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Those requiring a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal Arthur James Clayden. Arthur Clayden was born in 1883 in the Lament suburb of Kentish Town, known as Jim, He was one of 4 children born to bootmaker William Clayden and his wife Elizabeth. When Jim was 6 years old, his family moved to Australia, settling in the Melbourne suburb of Northcote, where his father opened a bootmaking shop. Jim received his education in Northcote at the Prince of Wales Park State School and later worked as a bootmaker like his father. In 1906, he married Matilda May Brenham. They had their first child, a son, also named Arthur James, in 1907, and a daughter named Elizabeth Dinah in 1908. Jim Clayden enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 19th of July 1915. He was assigned to reinforcements of the 7th Battalion with the rank of private and began a short period of training at Broadmeadows Camp in Victoria. He embarked for active service from Melbourne on the 11th of October 1915 on board the troop ship Nestor. After several weeks at sea, Private Clayden arrived in Egypt, where he continued training with his comrades. In February 1916, he was transferred to the 59th Battalion. That May, he was promoted to Lance Corporal before embarking for the Western Front the following month. After a week-long voyage, Lance Corporal Clayden arrived in the French port city of Marseille. He and his comrades were immediately sent north to the Franco-Belgian border, an area of the front line known as the nursery sector. Here, Clayden and his comrades were expected to have a quiet introduction to life in the trenches. This expectation was soon dashed, as his unit was called into battle on the 19th of July 1916, less than a month after arriving in France. Attacking near a small village of Fromelles, the battle was intended to draw enemy troops away from fighting further south in the Somme Valley. The attack was preceded by a 7-hour bombardment which aimed to destroy the enemy's front lines and allow the troops to advance unopposed. Clayden's unit went over the parapet in the first wave and was immediately met with murderous fire from the enemy, whose lines had been virtually untouched by the earlier barrage. Private Charles Cameron, who was also in the attack, wrote of their advance in a letter home. For 7 hours we sat behind our parapet while our artillery bombarded. At 7 o'clock in the evening, we hopped over the parapet, having 450 yards to go to get to their trenches, the ground being flat as a lawn with no cover at all. The Germans had saved their machine guns, and they gave us bullets, shrapnel, and high explosive shells like hail. Our doctors and stretcher bearers could not get out in front, as Fritz kept it up until the next afternoon. They also had snipers out shooting the wounded who were still lying there. This gospel truth: the Turk is a gentleman compared with the Germans. Within 24 hours, Australia units had suffered over 5,500 casualties. Lance Corporal Jim Clayden was badly wounded in the chest and spine. Paralysed from the waist down, he was evacuated to England for treatment. Clayden was admitted to Maida Vale Hospital for epilepsy and paralysis in London 4 days later. The officer in charge described his condition. On admission, he was very ill, but comfortable, contented and quite cheerful. He had no pain of any sort whatever, but he had total paralysis of the trunk and lower extremities, but his arms were unaffected. Mentally, he was quite clear and was conscious almost to the last and was an exceedingly good patient. He died of his wounds 2 days later. He was buried at Kensal Green All Souls Cemetery in a military service on the 29th of July 1916. His wife and children remembered him in a memorial notice placed in the Preston Leader. Friends may think we have forgotten when at times they see us smile, but they do not know the sorrow. That smile hides all the while. From memory's pages we'll never bolt these 3 little words: forget me not. Jim Clayden was 33 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst more than 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal Arthur James Clayden, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.